Charles, we've had quite a few interesting chats so far, so it's actually great to have you here on the actual APMZEE podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me on. It's exciting. Yeah, we've had some good coffee shop chats before the hand.
Good stuff. So let's start with the journey. So you've gone from, competing in actual bodybuilding competition and winning, to now focusing on body transformation for everyday people. What's changed in terms of how you think about performance, both mentally and physically, actually, for people you're training now versus, focusing on winning a trophy?
Yeah, it's a big shift, and it's taken some time. I think after you get, once you get over 30, you realize you can't just go in and, back in the bodybuilding, it's very simple. You go in, if you're progressively overloaded and you're getting stronger, you're training, you're going to change. So it's very simple. But as you get a bit older, 30s, and also clients in their 40s and 50s, they tend to break down a bit easier. So we had to kind of rethink. And over the years, you slowly change your program, your philosophy, and the way you do stuff. The biggest change really is more likely is actually looking after the body. Do they move well? Can they actually do these movements properly? How do we progress? How do we regress it without breaking them? But bodybuilding does teach you like great work ethic. Like you train hard, and that's a big thing that I like to still try and keep in within my training, because that does drive big change in people's bodies. But you've got to also manage stress and how everyone comes in. So if someone comes in, they've only slept 5 hours, probably not the best day we're going to try and go for a PB. So you have to adapt the session towards the clients then. But it really just comes down to looking at a lot more mobility stuff, and then actually looking at, can they actually fix some of these issues, doing the assessment properly, where before it was just like, when you've got guys in their 20s, you can just throw weights at them and they'll bounce back the next day. So yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, makes sense. So it has to be a little bit more focused, particularly with the people that are trying to transition when they're maybe out of fitness, right?
Okay. I think it's easy for people to want to just go in and work hard, but you've got to have a kind of, the only way you can really describe it is more like a coaching eye. Which days can we push, and which days we probably need to pull back a little bit and work on fixing some of these weak links. But yeah, I do very much love to push people hard, but then you've also got to make sure you are a bit more careful on the days where they're not recovered as well.
I think there's something important in that, and it's actually balancing your ability to train and your ability to recover. Is that right? That sounds like what you're sort of getting at.
Yeah, I think even for myself, I mean, I used to pretty much go in every single day and try and just break your body and push as hard as you can. Where now I'm probably a bit more gentle on the body, where I'll know what days I need to back off. I mean, we've got all these whoops now and stuff, right? We can see all this data. And you can use it as a metric. It's not like, if I wake up and I'm in the red, it's not going to be a terrible day. It might be a good day, but you're just looking at a trend for the week. Is my recovery getting better, or is it getting worse? Okay. Probably need to back off towards the end of the week as opposed to keep pushing through. And you just learn trial and error from yourself, and then with clients as well.
Yeah, it makes good sense. And so some of the clients you work with, obviously one of their goals is probably to kind of get their prime back. But maybe a lot of people think, getting your prime back means going back to being 25 again. But actually, from where you sit as a coach, what does it mean to, get back into your prime and get fit again? And is it different kind of for someone who's slightly older, maybe 40s and 50s versus someone who's in their 30s?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, if you look at what people are actually saying when they're coming for an assessment, most of the common thing is, yes, they want to look better. Of course, it's usually the first driver, right? They might have been on the beach in the summer, they come back, didn't look great on the pitch, I want to change. But when you actually delve deep into it, it's more along the facts is, I think guys, 40 and 50, they're a bit later. They really want to think about, how do I feel like I'm in control of my body? Not just, looking good, but I want to feel like I've got energy. I want to feel like I've got focus, because you've got a lot of plates to juggle now. You're not young anymore, where you can just focus on yourself and training. Now you've got a family, you've got a business, you've got to manage this, and you've got to squeeze in your training with all of that going in as well. So it really comes down to someone who gets a good transformation and then actually makes it stick. It's just allowing them to build up these habits over time and allowing them to really feel like they've got control of what they're doing. And it's just, the knowledge is there, but it's sometimes, just because it's common knowledge doesn't mean it's common practice, is probably the best way to put it. So even though I'm usually telling them the same stuff they've heard before, doesn't mean they're doing it. And it doesn't mean they're doing it right? They might be tracking, but they're tracking really badly. They're not doing it properly. So sometimes it's just a little bit of help to get them through it.
That makes sense. And it sounds like what you're saying is the older they get as well, the aesthetics are kind of the secondary thing, perhaps. They're much more interested in how they feel, how they operate, how mobile they are, and I guess their longevity versus just looking good for the beach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a big difference. I think
Yeah.
when I was training, obviously a lot of younger guys, it's all about aesthetics, right? You want to be, you know, you're still chasing women or whatever the case may be. You're very much a vanity metric, and you can push really hard, and you probably don't have that much stress going on later in the day, so it doesn't matter if you're tired. But now these guys are operating on a high level. They've got to make sure their energy is good for work. They've got to be present. They've got to be focused. So we've got to know, right, how can we balance this program to get the maximum out of you without destroying the whole week going forward. So it's a very different game, and the focus in that age is very much, how do I operate at my best, and, you know, feel like I'm in control, and, you know, not leaving the gym broken, feel like I'm actually good for the rest of the day, I've not injured myself. And a lot of it comes down to, with the guys, it's actually getting them out of the mindset of just going heavy all the time, lifting weights like maybe they did before. And it's actually taking a bit more, I don't really like the word too much, but a holistic view, which basically just means, it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but can we get you moving properly again? Do you actually do any mobility? Can you actually move from the hip? How does your knee move? How does this move? And these are the questions guys never ask, because it's a lot of knowledge to understand. But once you can break it down for them and say, look, this is how you should be doing it. And see the difference? Oh, it feels different. Oh, I don't get back pain now. My knee feels better. Right, this is what we're working on going forward.
Yeah. You've touched on a couple of things there. One is, you know, busy people, you know, they're juggling careers, family, real life. And also you're talking to a degree about the mistakes, actually. So what are the sort of more common mistakes you're seeing that are kind of universal? And I guess, you know, what are the mistakes that keep happening, you know, even on repeat for even specific clients?
Yeah, probably the easiest one is this, like, you're right, you're rebounding. Guys come in and you want to go all in. All of a sudden, they're not trained for a while. Now they want to train 5 days a week. They want to cut themselves down to 1,000 calories or whatever, 1,500 calories, whatever the case may be. And they're going to intermittent fast. They basically try and do everything at once. And obviously, I mean, before you can obviously work it out, it obviously fails eventually, because you can only stress yourself out for so long. And they're the ones that tend to rebound up and down like this, but the ones that take it steady, take their time, they give themselves time to get these habits built. And they, you know, they learn the skills of, like, learn the skill of training really well. Can you learn the skill of actually what's in food and how to manage it? Learn the skill of, like, how do I recover properly? Right? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I being honest with myself? How am I with the caffeine? Am I overdoing it? So you can get all of these things in place. And then once you get that transformation, that big before and after, where you're like 10% body fat, the guys who have spent and done that journey properly and taken time, they keep it for the rest of the years, right? There's plenty of guys in the program that, because they've taken the time initially, they've now continued that journey for the next few years. And I'm confident they can keep it off for a long time.
So you've touched on a couple of things there in terms of, I guess, the extremes, and actually sometimes the extremes, you know, lead people to failure, actually, and they almost go backwards in a way. We sort of live in this universe at the moment where, you know, there's a lot of crash diets, you know, there's a lot of punishing workouts, and it's kind of glorified online to some degree. And I think people they want to rush there. They want to get there faster. But you're obviously seeing day to day that actually that's probably not the best way to do it. So, you know, what is the better approach, I would say?
The funny thing is with Instagram, and I'm probably guilty with it as well, is the boring stuff that you need to do doesn't get the likes, right? So we have to play with the algorithm and play with the audience. And the more crazy exercises trainers do, or I do, the more likes it gets, the more traffic it gets. But that doesn't mean you should be doing it, especially if you've never trained, doing this really advanced level exercise. And the problem is, because we see that on social media, this guy's in shape and look what he's doing, I need to do that. And in reality, when I get a client, it's actually breaking it down, right? You've got to start here and execute this basic movement really well. We might progress to this, we might not, might never need to. But if you can master these basic movements patterns properly, you're going to be in a way better position. But that's just, unfortunately, that's just playing the game of Instagram. That's how it works.
Yeah, I hear you fully on that, because I even have these conversations with other guys, kind of, you know, friends, could be anywhere from 40 plus. and they're all, you know, doing this constant thing where they want to get back in the gym, and they see these things and they start doing these movements, which in some cases they probably don't even need to do them, or they're a waste of time for them. So completely get that. And I think, you know, your on social media and your program, you talk a lot about biomechanics, you know, proper form, you know, just training intelligently. So, you know, for someone who's really thinking about evolving, you know, how and staying in shape over time, you know, for sustained performance and longevity, you know, what are the key things they should do to avoid, you know, for that longevity versus the short-term result?
Yeah, a big one I like to actually focus on is there's planes of movement without getting too sided, right? But you've got how our body moves in space. We've got a sagittal plane, which is, you think it should be called the frontal plane because you're basically pushing and pulling stuff in this direction and up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the frontal plane, which is actually like lateral movement. So think about
Mm-hmm.
moving your body laterally in space, right?
Makes
And then you've
sense.
got your transverse movement, which is basically like rotation, if I can break it down. So you've got all of these three pillars, and we should be moving in all three.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at any bodybuilding program, or yeah, bodybuilding mainly, it's all moving forward and backwards, right? There's no focus on the feet. There's no focus on moving laterally. There's no focus on there might be one rotation, but there's no focus on rotation. Then you get a guy and you go, okay, now you're going to go and play paddle. Now you're going to go and play football.
Mm-hmm.
You try and move up and down the field without going sideways.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it. And that's where they, you know, sprain an ankle, they'll damage their knee. They're doing jumping, they're doing plyometric stuff, all on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they don't train any of that stuff in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And then wonder why they come out and their knees swollen, their back's pain after 2 hours of paddle.
Yeah.
So it's now, okay, we realize we need these movements in training. We need to look after these movements. How do we bring this into training
Mm-hmm.
to get you to be able to adapt to that stimulus? So when you go on that pitch or you go onto the paddle court, you're actually looked after. And a lot of the things also, when you look at programming for designed for even for like S&C stuff, they probably don't have a lot of stuff focused on lower limb. So we're thinking like ankle, calf, feet, tibialis, things like this, because they didn't really need to program it because they're spending so much time in the week on the field. They're doing a lot of their plyometric stuff, doing their sport. But you as a, you know, laid person, right, going into the gym, you don't do that.
Yeah.
So you actually need to spend a bit more time working on these elements.
I think you touched on an important point there as well around like injury and avoiding injury. And that I think seems to be a much more crucial thing, particularly as you're getting older, because you can get away with a lot when you're young, but actually these things start to creep in. And you've given, I think the example there is, you know, people going out and playing football, and that's where they have the injury. Actually, it's doing the thing in real life, in other parts of life as opposed to in the gym.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the classic thing, right? Someone wants to get in shape. They've not run for how many months now, and they go, right, I'm going to do a 5K, and they just sprint and they go as fast as they can, and obviously something breaks, right? My ankle's hurting, my knee's hurting, and then when really ideally a smart approach would have been, let's do 1K, 2K, run a bit, walk a bit, run a bit, walk a bit, and build it up and actually get you going. But yeah, everyone just wants to jump in and they want to get straight to the hardest workout. And if you look at even social media, I'm going to do this program, let's call it 75 hard, whatever the case may be, they want to go straight for the hardest thing, when in reality, they need to come 2 steps back.
Yeah.
How can we get you moving well and playing well and progress as we go through?
Yeah. And that's a common thing. I mean, I always see it as this sort of boom bust cycle people seem to be on. You know, they get fit for a bit and then they maybe get injured and then they go back to square one almost, or they even go off for like 6 months, 12 months, God knows how long. And then they have to get back into it again. And it's kind of a repeat cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, you see it all the time. And I had clients before where they come into the program and then they leave and go and do it themselves for a little bit. And then it's like, I just don't get it. Every time I go in, my knee blows up, my back's killing. I don't understand. And it's just a case of a few cues maybe they need to keep on. But especially as we get a bit older, it's so important to try and stay without injury.
Mm-hmm.
But also to that, I think it's a really difficult balance because you've got people who are saying, right, you need to push to actually drive change in the body. You want to be able to physically look different or lift something heavy, right? You want to feel like you're doing something. And then you got the other side where your yogis, no, do your stretching, do your mobility. And reality is you need both.
Yeah, makes sense.
You really need to work with both. So there's a time and a place for working on this, and there's a time and a place you just need to send it. And that's probably the hardest balance with clients to get right. And as you as a coach to try and make sure, can we get them the result they want?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So in terms of like the nutrition side, I mean, obviously that's a key part of what you do and what you bring for your clients that you're training. But in the real world, that can sometimes be a little bit hard to juggle, hard to manage, particularly with a busy lifestyle. When can you do your meal prep, etc. What are the kinds of things that you suggest to them enable to manage that in a real world situation?
Yeah, I mean, with most clients these days, I mean, I come from a body transformation background, working in London and in Dubai, top gyms for all of this stuff. And we were very much focused on like meal plans and everything, fixed time frame, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And obviously it gets the result, but no one sticks to it after that.
Yeah.
So obviously I work with people a bit more longer term. So we give them the tools to do it. So in case if you want to get in shape, it's yes, you can do a meal plan. Yes, it'll work. You can do some kind of diet. It'll obviously work. And it just works for one reason, really. You're just getting in some kind of calorie deficit.
Mm.
But how do you do it sustainably? It depends for you. Like some guys don't like breakfast in the morning. Okay, don't give them it. It's fine. But some people need breakfast in the morning. So you got to just work on what a client needs and just understand the principles, right? We need to get our protein targets. We're very clear. We need to get that target in. So, okay, we need to tick that box. Can we tick that box? We need to have some kind of energy balance, right? Can we manage our calories a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's super easy with AI. I mean, you can grab your phone now, you can open the app we have and you just take a picture of it and it calculate it. All right, it's not going to be exact, but it'll give you a good idea. And at least then you start to understand that once you start taking pictures of food and starting to track it, that's what's in that. Okay, I could take that out, I could take this out. I had no idea I was eating that much. And just that realization will get people to make huge changes. And once you've built that skill of actually understanding food a little bit, you've got that skill for life. So I really encourage a lot of people to actually track a lot of stuff, because the data just gives you the feedback. If we look at the data, okay, we can see this is your calorie intake, this is your protein intake, weight's coming off this fast. It's immediate. You can see exactly where the roadblocks are.
It's funny, so it actually took me back to thinking about how it used to be back in the late 90s. And I sort of go into the supermarket and look at the back of every can before I...
It's a nightmare,
because I was like, I need extra, I want this amount of protein and this amount. So nowadays it's super easy, right? You can go and do it with AI. So.
Even when I started, I mean, I first did this stuff when I was like 19, 20, 21, I was competing. Back then it was a notepad and pen, and I was on MyFitnessPal, I think we had it at the time. And I'm back and forward calculating everything out, writing it down, and then you'd print off a menu, and this would be on my fridge, and that'd be it, and that's what I'd eat for the whole week. Now it's super easy.
Yeah, there's something about that process though that kind of ingrains it in you and makes you think, and you, like you say, it's almost automated, isn't it? After time. So that's interesting. So obviously, with any physical transformation, whether it's for health, looks, or whatever, it tends to be not just physical. Actually, it's also a mental thing. How much do you think the real work is for these people in terms of their confidence, their identity, and what they actually think is achievable? How important is that in the process?
I think, if we're honest with most people that come through the door, it's very, very rare that someone comes to me and goes, let's say they're 20, 25% body fat, 30%. I want to be 10% body fat, and actually believe they can get there. Nobody believes it at all. They might say they want it, but they don't really want it. It's just like a loot. They're just like, what's your goal? And they shoot one at me really quickly, thinking because I want to hear it. So what we do is what the nice transition with people, which is really good. You get them down the line, 3 months down the line, maybe they're 20%, 15% body fat, and they're at a good level now, right? The body fat's gone, belly's gone, gut's gone, feeling good about myself. Okay, what do I do from here? Okay, is it working? Is it just do more of the same for a longer period of time, and you'll get to this goal of doing this photo shoot? No. You mean like I've got to cut carbs out completely? I've got to cut everything out? Maybe not. You just need to run the timeline a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we see that we still keep seeing the check-ins, we see the changes, and then that belief didn't really come in until they got to like maybe halfway through the goal. And that mindset shift, their identity's changed. So they've gone from someone who wants to be in shape to I'm a guy that trains. I'm a guy that I go to the gym. This is my identity now. I'm a guy who looks after my food. I'm a guy who looks after myself. The identity changes. And when you see that like light switch in a client change, you've got them, and you're going to get a really good result. But that could take time. Some people can get there in a few months. Some people could be like 1 or 2 years. It's random sometimes.
Yeah. I think you touched upon there something we've already spoken about, which is this short-termist thinking. It's like, actually, if you just do it in stages, and I always have this thing, which is actually just focus on getting to the 80%, then you can decide how much further you want to go. Because being at 80%, you could be in really good health, you could be really good fitness, you could still be enjoying life, and you can eat some carbs and do whatever. But if you then, at that point, it's much easier then choose if you want to go that bit further. So it's like kind of a phased approach, and don't try to bite off more than you can chew. I guess it's the key thing. Would that sound fair in terms of how you deal with those
Yeah,
clients?
100%. It comes down to just really getting good at the basic stuff. There's nuances to this, and there's ways to do it. Like the biggest thing is, right, it's very clear in the data, right, is that you can't deny it. Energy balance is a thing. It's a big thing. It's what's going to drive change. It's undeniable, right? The science is there. But equally, that fact is, I fell into this trap when I was competing. I was very much, as long as I hit my macros, I'm good, right? And my body did always stay lean, but maybe my energy was rubbish. It was really bad. I had no energy throughout the day. I was like having naps during the day. Yes, I had a six pack all the time and I looked great, but energy was rubbish, completely shot. Skin probably wasn't the best. Health didn't feel great, bloated all the time. Okay, so there's obviously something else to this. So then we need to look at whole foods, right? And I think the four micronutrients that obviously we know protein, carbs, and fats, but fiber's missed. We completely forget about fiber.
Yeah.
And fiber's huge for just how your energy is going to be. It's really good if you've got some heart problems as well. If you don't have enough fiber in your diet, is your digestion good? And most people, unless you're eating a lot of like greens and stuff, will be way off their fiber mark.
For sure.
And then everyone's like, well, why do I need fiber? Well, these reasons I've just suggested. And you'll find once people get that covered, mood feels better, digestion feels better, energy feels better throughout the night. Like even sometimes clients struggle with sleep, and the quite common thing is I wake up at 2, 3 a.m., right? Not saying this is all the time, but this can be the case. And if they're a little bit, blood sugar is a bit all over the place anyway, the blood sugar kind of drops throughout the night and adrenaline starts to spike because the blood sugar has dropped. And then they wake up and they go, I can't sleep. And then, okay, let's just try it. So just before they go to bed, they have some Greek yogurt, some blueberries, maybe some oats in there, just not even too much, like 200-300 calories like this, just like an hour before bed. And then they take it and then they find, do you know what, I slept through all the way through the night last night. Okay, so then we have a signal, right? That's probably what's going on. Because they're trying to restrict themselves too much and the blood sugar is messing up. And then they sleep really well. Guess what? They're going to train really good the next day.
Sure, the sleep's super critical. And I remember we've talked about this before, just actually it gets harder and harder to manage those hormones, the lower body fat percentage you go. And again, on what you were saying earlier, people come in with this idea in their head, 10%, but actually we spoke about this one as well, which is, if you look at the movie stars and the ones that people always aspire to be, they're not necessarily as low body fat as people think, right? So to actually get into that balance of looking and feeling good is the key. Or it seems to be the key.
Yeah, and also with the celebrities and stuff, that is probably just for that day on that shoot at that particular time. They're like, bang, they're dialed in.
Yeah.
The water was maybe cut. They've done everything right, and they just look great for that shoot.
Yeah.
And in reality, if you look at them maybe 2 weeks after the film, they'll look very different. They might have gone up to 12, 14% body fat. To maintain a body fat level like that is tough. But I think it's very achievable for most to stay between 12, 10. It's achievable for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was actually just saw a video the other day of Mike Thurston that he was talking about, and he said actually his body fat percentage is higher than most people think. Obviously carrying a reasonable amount of muscle as well. But it's interesting what people's view and actually what they really need to achieve. And I think that goes back to focus on these phases, get yourself to a place where you feel good, you're fit and healthy actually. And then you've got more choices at that point. It feels like that's the key. Do you find that that journey at the beginning to get a client in that mindset is a hard thing to do, or?
Yeah, so let's look at someone who's just done a photo shoot, for example. Let's say they're just under 10%, right? We're doing it just for that image. And you ask them how they feel. Probably not. They feel okay. They don't feel terrible, but they don't feel great. Then we let them we reverse diet them out a little bit. They have a few more calories. They're maybe at 12%. Still look great. Still can see their abs a little bit. Still feeling fine, but their energy is vastly different. They feel so much better. So, okay, so what's going to be better for you long term? Staying here or going back to that? Okay, so we've got to shift the goal, right? And I think a lot of it, because everyone wants to stay exactly like that. Like, especially when I competed, I'd love to stay like that year round. it looked great.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's so hard to maintain. Where, you know, if we go up to like 12%, let's say something like that body fat,
Mm.
you can still go out on the weekends. All right, you're pretty much dialed in during the week. And then on the weekend you can have that little bit of give and take, and that's a really nice balance because you feel confident in how you look, you feel that you've got your energy, and you're just making sure these things are looked after throughout the week.
Yeah.
That's the perfect place to be.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult to say the word balance and get everything balanced in life, but you have to find what I would say. I always put it in the context of the scales. So everyone's scales are a little bit different. So you've just got to weigh up those scales in a way that works for you. And if it's, you know, going 5 days a week where you're a little bit stricter and then enjoying the weekend, whatever that looks like, but you feel better overall, you're enjoying life, I think that's a nice place to be. And most people probably that's what they want. And then if they want to do that, you know, short term, cut themselves down and get that photo, then they've got that option, right? It's a lot closer to where they are.
Especially if you're in that position of body fat, you can quickly pull back for a few weeks. Oh, I've got a holiday coming up quickly. All right, 4 weeks, let's go. Cut this thing out, and then boom, you look good for the holiday, and you've got it.
Yeah, and I think we do live in a world now where the aesthetic side almost overbearing against the fitness and health side. And I mean, I always think, you know, but certainly I think this is for the older you get, the more you feel this way, which is, you know, the aesthetic's nice, but actually I just want to feel better. I just want to be better, and I want to stay active for as long as possible. And then, you know, there's a side benefit to that, which is the fitter and more healthy you are, you know, perhaps you'll also get some of the aesthetics as well. But actually the primary goal as you age, I think, is more around that, staying active, staying mobile. Because I think what's the point in getting older if you can't actually be active and do those things? That feels like an actual better way to approach it than going, actually, I just got to look like this, you know? And that sounds like what you've been saying, you know, and how critical is that for your clients, or how do your clients look at it in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's good to actually pull back on this question. So my job, and you know, what brings people in is the before and afters, right? That's the visual that pulls the client in, right? That's just how it is. That's the hook. Yeah. But in reality, what's really cool, yeah, the pictures are amazing. They look great. But what's really cool is when a client comes to me and goes, you know what, I'm out with my kids. I was on the play area. I was able to keep up with them the whole time, you know, and things like that. And even like really older clients, I remember a funny story. He comes in, he goes, Charlie, I said, what? I said, I'm so happy. What happened? Well, I managed to put my socks on the first time. I said, what do you mean you managed to put your socks on for the first time? He's like, without sitting down. He's like, you know, he's 70, he's retired, and he's like, yeah, stood up, put my socks on. Normally I have to sit down. It takes me a good 20 minutes to get those things on. And just little things like that. We want to be able to move well. And that's really where my training's changed a lot from bodybuilding style stuff, right? And even how can we get you to move in these ways? Like if you're going to pick your children up, you're going to pick stuff up in front of your body.
Yeah.
So when I give someone a barbell in front, like, why are you giving me a barbell in front?
Yeah.
Well, when you pick your daughter up, what's going to happen? That's probably going to how you pick her up. Oh yeah, makes sense. Okay. And this is, once we get people to actually be able to move in the way that they should, and in a gym, you've got a very safe environment. It's much better to load and exercise in the gym than be out and grabbing the bag from the car and then, oh, my back's gone, right? We want to kind of plan for these things. But yeah, it's very much, the goal has to be more of an holistic view, especially after the pictures are done.
And what do you think of the differences then between the people you're just talking about there, the ones that actually find it easier, or not necessarily easier, but are able to do their change quicker, versus the people that struggle with it and maybe go through that boom bust cycle?
Probably the honest answer for that one is it's mindset for sure. It's a complete mental game. And the ones that will get a result very quickly, you can usually see it in the first assessment. You ask the questions how they're going to do it. And this is I actually really like the use of language a lot when I'm asking clients about their goal. And whenever they're coming into me and they're going, yeah, I should, I need, I must, all of this negative language, they're not ready for a change yet. When it's like, you know, I will, yeah, I'm going to do that. yeah, this is me. The identity's changed. So you're very careful of the language you're using, because what language you're going to be using is pretty much going to determine how you're going to feel and then how you're going to act from that thing. So I think for a lot of people, it's a case of sometimes it's just having that honest conversation with themselves, or getting me to do it, excuse me, and just being like, what's really the goal? And then you try and go like 3 levels deep with the why. I want to get in shape. Why? Because I want to feel better about myself. Okay, good. Why? Well, really, I want to make sure I can walk my kid down the aisle. Right? That's a big goal. That's a real goal. You can anchor that. And then we can use that. So when it comes to transformation and, life stress is going to happen. You're going to have things come up. Okay, just remember, what was the real reason we're doing this for? Yes, you're right. That's the goal. And you've got to find that. If you don't get that anchor from someone at the beginning, when they're getting off the rails and life is getting stressed, what can you pull them back with? You got nothing there. They don't even know it. But once you get someone to understand really what they're doing this for, and it is just about family, relationship, business, whatever the case may be, that's what's going to bring you across the line. And that's what's going to give you the goal. So if it comes to what's the difference between someone who goes boom and bust, probably knowing their why.
So what you're saying is maybe it's a holistic approach.
Yeah, I know.
I know it is a horrible word, but in some ways it makes a lot of sense, because as you talk there, it's like actually the mental side is just as important as the physical side. And I think the difference between success and failure often with these things is if you can it's all the different things and getting them in some level of consistency and balance. So you're eating, your exercise, or how much you exercise, keeping your stress down, managing to get the sleep. And if you don't get the sleep, you can't recover. And getting all those things working together nicely is actually the real trick, isn't it, in the end? And that's what gets you. And I think that's where I always believe in the whole consistency thing over going gung-ho, because I think the more you go in the short-termist view, the more you're likely to burn out, get injured. Whereas if you keep on this kind of, or try as best you can to keep on that consistent cycle, you're going to probably have benefit eventually over time. Is that kind of what you see, or?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a good thing is I don't miss twice. It's pretty much a good thing to do. So, okay, you missed Monday, don't miss twice.
Yeah.
Wednesday, I'm back in. Tuesday, I'm back in, for example. Yeah. And just have that philosophy with yourself and say, I'm going to see this through to make sure I get the goal. I think you've got to be very careful not to have these, unfortunately, these 8 and 12 week transformations. They are possible. I've got some with clients, but it's very rare. It's really a short-term mindset. But unfortunately, that's what gets people through the door. Like our business with body transformation, working with these top companies here, all 8, 12-week programs, because that's just how the business model works. In reality, someone who wants to get a world-class result, he's spent years training.
Yeah, of course.
Years training. And maybe I just got them at that last little 12 weeks to get the photo shoot.
Yeah.
But you've got to really, I think a lot of people take a much bigger view at yourself. What really understand your why? What is the actual thing you want to do? Right. I want to be able to play paddle without my knee hurting. I want to be able to be with a kid. Good. Right. Why do you want that? And then let's get deeper. And once you really understand, it's a bit woo-woo, but you really have got to understand your why. Otherwise, you're not going to get to that goal you really want. Or you might get the wrong goal. Yeah. And then you'll go, what next?
No, it makes perfect sense, actually. I think understanding the reasoning for it. And with those clients, do you find a lot of them come to you with a why that is more around just a personal motivation, or do you also see ones where they come in and maybe something in their health actually has changed, which has sort of triggered them, or is it a combination?
Just thinking back, yeah, I think the common one is probably that usually guys are getting close to their 40s, yeah, and that's usually this midlife, like, okay, I've got to pull myself back here. I've lost my way a little bit. Yeah. So it could just be an age thing, right? I want to be in the best shape I can at 40, right? We get a few like that, and then it could be the opposite, right? I've had a bit of a heart scare. The doctor's now asked me to go on some tablets. I don't want to go on tablets, right? I've got to fix this. Yeah. And it's really nice to see, especially in the early stages. Let's say we lose 5 kilos, 10 kilos off, but you look at them in their face, they're completely different. Some guys even look like 10 years younger. Yeah. Because all their bags have gone out their eyes. They're not puffy. They're not, they're looking all out of shape. Just by losing that little bit of weight and getting this lifestyle back. And you look at the before and after, you're like, okay, the body's changed, right? It's not masses. But you look at their face, you're like, Jesus, you've lost like 10 years.
Yeah. I think you see that even you can see someone who's out of shape in their 30s and then they've gotten into shape by the time they're 40, and the difference can be quite dramatic and actually look younger at 40 than they did in their 30s. So there's definitely that for sure. So, we're talking a lot about this transformation process, and I guess if someone, let's look at someone who wanted to really dramatically, someone listening to this podcast maybe that wants to dramatically change or improve how they feel and look over the next 6 to 12 months. Not a complete without like a complete life overhaul, like total drama, and also with noticeable progress. What are the kind of 2 or 3 key things they can do, and what are the other things that maybe they could just throw out and not worry about?
Yeah, in the sea of, this fitness battle, everyone's driving the attention. Honestly, there's really, sorry, I asked for 2 or 3. I'm going to give you 5. But
Go for it.
There's only 5 real things that are really going to drive change, and if you can master these 5 things, you're going to completely change your life. And can you hit your protein target? Yes. Can you hit your calorie target? Can you maintain some kind of, if your goal is to lose some weight? Yes. Can you hit your step target? And steps in exercise, right? Can I gym 3 times a week? Can I get 8K steps in, right? Then whole foods. Can you actually try and eat whole foods? 80% is the rule we always throw around, but can you eat it most of the time? And then the 5th one's a bit of a different one. It's like, can you manage your stress? Right? Because it's a thing we need to be able to manage, right? Yeah. And probably the biggest thing that's going to manage your stress is, can you control your sleep? Right? Especially these days, guys, they're super busy. They're working like till 3 a.m. And the problem is they work till 3 a.m. Then they wake up the next day, they're obviously tired. So then we start the day with a coffee. I'm crashing again at 12. I have to have another one. I've still not finished my work because I'm still tired. I can't focus on what I'm doing. Yeah. I need to have another one, and then I'm back in again. I'm 2 a.m. going to bed. Yeah. And they run this cycle all week. And then in that, when someone comes to me like this, common case, then we're like, I need to lose weight and transform. Whoa. The big red flag is this here. Yeah. Don't lose sight. Your sleep's way off. So if you're not sleeping very well, you're guaranteed, you try and restrict your calories, 0 chance. Because your hormones, your leptin, your ghrelin are through the roof. You're craving sugar. You're craving anything to bring this stress level back down again. Yeah. So it's very important at the beginning to identify what's your red flag.
Yeah. It's funny you say that as well, because I think we do live in a world where it's kind of glorified to, not sleep and actually work really hard and all that sort of stuff. But actually, when you look deeper at some of the successful people, no matter what industry or discipline, you do find actually that sleep is critical, whether that's a sports person, a tennis player, let's say, or someone, who's in the movies or whatever, and they're, successful in their career, they definitely value sleep and they protect it. That's very clear in a lot of that stuff. But trying to get that across to people, and people slip into the habit, don't they? The bad habit, which is exactly as you've described, which is a very hard thing to break, particularly when you're in that habit. So in a way, what are your sort of suggestions to them when they come to you with that challenge? What do you kind of suggest to them in terms of how they can get back on track and have a bit more of a regular cycle?
Yeah. I mean, sleep's interesting, right? One of my favorite books when I was growing up was like Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it was like 6 hours sleep. You've got, 18 hours to go. What are you doing with the rest of your day, right? It was all about this low sleep, just get to work. Where now there's a nice shift, right? Everyone's got these whoops on their hands. They're calculating their sleep and stuff. And I see it a lot with the big CEO guys that they really prioritize their sleep. They're on their A game. These guys are making big money. They're making big decisions. They can't afford to not sleep very well. And they're really on it. And I thought I'd test it myself. So I remember I did an IQ test, right? So I did an IQ test. I slept like, I don't know, less than 5 hours. I did the test. And for me, I felt like I was still performing, right? I'm fine. I don't need the sleep because my recovery was always okay. I did an IQ test. I got 100 points, right? I don't know if it's okay, probably not. Next day, I went to sleep and I got 8 hours sleep, or between 8 and 9. Let's do another IQ test, right? We'll do another test. Maybe it was a week apart. And I scored 130 points. So you're losing 30 points every single time you're not sleeping. Yeah. That's the data's right there. Yeah. So you're expecting to make good decisions throughout the day, and yet you're running on this low frequency all day. So how can you get on top of the sleep? It takes time, and I think it's really about, obviously we know to cut caffeine, don't have it too late. Making sure you're eating good food towards later in the day, maybe lighter before you go to bed. But I think it just comes down to slowly bringing that body clock back, right? And realizing if you've got big things to do the next day, it's probably not the best time to do it at night time before you wake up. You're probably better to do it the next day.
For sure.
And because I guarantee every time you're at 12, I've got this thing to do before tomorrow. What you did between 12 and 3, I guarantee you could have done that in half an hour first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And the amount of times you'll see it.
Completely agree with that. Yeah.
So, but we all try and push the boundaries, don't we?
We do, and but you've hit the nail on the head, I think, with the time versus actually efficiency. And I think it's critical both in terms of work, but also in terms of the work you do in your fitness and health. I think people directly equate length of time too much to actually results, but actually really good, focused, efficient results are perhaps actually better for actually getting somewhere. Like you say, you could spend 3 hours doing something just before bed and then have terrible sleep and then perform really badly the next day. Or you could get that sleep in, get it done in half an hour, and your brain's better at absorbing it. And I think the same goes for fitness. And I'm interested in your view on this. So again, like I see a lot of people in the gym who never seem to change, and they actually do look like they're hating doing it. Actually, they're just going there because they feel they have to, and they can sometimes be on a treadmill when I get there and the treadmill when I leave. And I think to myself, you're doing this, and it's a length of time, but you're maybe not getting any results for that. How important is, I guess, doing the right things in the efficient side of it versus just doing more time, physically and mentally?
And it's pretty obvious,
Yeah.
right? It's pretty obvious. I mean, if you look at someone, they started in January, they got to December, they're still doing exactly the same weights, exactly the same cardio, and they look exactly the same. Just think how many hours they've spent in the gym.
Yeah.
But you could say it was productive. At least it was better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
Sure, we can use that. But there's no change. Where you've got someone who's actually going to be tracking the data, and you can see, I'm actually getting stronger here. I'm actually getting fitter here, and I'm pushing myself. And you don't need a lot of time in the gym. You really don't.
Great.
Like I used to, train 6 days a week, and I hated Sunday because I couldn't train that day. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
But once I realized, one of my first coaches when I got into competing, they like, right, you're only going to train 4 days a week. And I was training, 6, 7. Okay, so what am I meant to do for 3 days? Well, you just rest.
Recover.
From what? But I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
And it was the hardest thing, but I said, okay, look, they know what they're doing. So, and I started to see every week my lifts are going up. My energy was really good. I didn't feel like I had low energy all the time. But look like I'm changing. Everything looks really good. Okay. Yeah. So I've completely missed this piece on recovery. And I think it's super important. I think for most people, you can actually get really a lot of stuff done in 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can. If you just have 3 actual focused hours, and it might even not be the hour, 45 minutes, you can be in and out.
I agree. Yeah, totally agree.
And obviously just getting the steps in and managing your food.
Yeah, I always think that doing 45 minutes of proper work in the gym or whatever the exercise is usually is better than doing a sloppy an hour and a half. And I see it all the time. It just doesn't work. Actually, just be focused and concentrate on getting it in a consistent way for a long period of time. I think that's critical. So, we talk again about like people getting into shape or getting into fitness. In terms of the clients that you meet, the ones that do get into shape, do you see that a lot of them slipping back out of shape again for whatever reason that, life takes over again? And, are they struggling with that? Or, I guess what separates the people who are fit and consistently fit versus the people that are restarting every January, let's say?
It probably comes down probably again to your identity, right? If someone identifies with themselves as I'm someone who looks after themselves, I'm someone who looks after themselves and I train, and they get these little confidence boosters. Work's really noticing me, like they're saying, God, you really look after yourself at your age. They love that, right? That's great. It feels good, and it reinforces their belief all the time because people are telling them, families telling them, you've made a big change. Work saying you've made this thing, so that reinforces it and it keeps them going. But it's going to be a mindset thing, and it's just allowing someone. You've also got to make sure when you get somebody in, you've got to give them the result. Literally, I've got to give them some level of result within like 30 days.
Yeah.
If they're not in less pain, like pain-free when they're training, or they've not lost a considerable amount of weight, there's a good chance, there's 50-50 chance you'll lose them.
Yeah.
Because everyone's so short-sighted.
Yeah.
Because they've maybe not had success before.
Yeah.
So why would this time it would work?
And do you find like sort of people that might be in business and they're used to actually taking a long time, perhaps in business, to actually see change and work on a project, but they don't necessarily apply that to when they're trying to get into shape and get fit again?
Yeah, the obvious one that I always get is, tracking's hard and everything else. Okay, so let's just run this out. Do you track the data for your business? Well, of course, yeah, that's my job. Do you track all the numbers? Yeah, profit, loss, everything else?
Yeah.
Of course. Well, of course, how am I going to grow the business? Okay. Do you ever track it for your nutrition? Profit. Well, hey, no, that's different. But what's different about it?
It's the same, yeah.
And if it really comes down to it, although I don't like to be overly tracky with stuff, but I think a period of time where you are tracking will teach you so much in that period of time that you probably never need to track again. So for someone who wants to lose weight to get into a photo shoot, we're going to have to track. We're pushing the body to somewhere it's never been.
Yeah.
But once you've finished, I don't get them to track.
Yeah.
Just, continue what you were doing before, add a bit of this in, enjoy yourself. It's not worth the stress. And it's really, I don't really track my food anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's important. It's like learn the lessons from the tracking, and then you kind of do it almost in an automated way, or at least you've got a rough idea so you can manage it in a more easy way within your life. But getting over that hurdle, I think, is sometimes a challenge for people. Yeah,
I see with clients, we'll go out for drinks after and they're like, I've just had this, that's probably about this much protein, bit of that. Oh, okay, I'm okay for the day. And it's funny, I laugh because I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even calculate it today. But once you've got the skill, it's such a real gift.
Yeah, you get a rough idea of how much you're getting each time. Right, so on to the last question. This one's always one I ask most guests, which is, what would be the advice you would give to your younger self in terms of training, health, and what actually really matters for the long term?
I think I would be a lot more kinder to myself when I was younger. When I was young, I was really tough. Like workouts was just, you go as hard as you can and you go until something breaks or you can't do it, right? You just really push yourself. Where now I'd probably step back a little bit more and be a bit more, right, can we make sure we're moving really good? Today's a good day to push, Charlie. Today's not a good day to push. So being kinder on myself there, I'd have spent way more time actually looking at mobility of stuff, like how my joints actually moving, how am I feeling, really learning the technique. When you're young, you're just trying to put weight on the bar and get it moving. You're not caring how you do it. It's A to B.
And you get away with a lot.
And you get away with loads of it. Yeah, your friend catches the bar quickly and you're okay. Yeah. But now I'd actually spend the time to either get a good coach or research myself and really understand the movements and take it into practice. And saying the word again, take a more holistic view, right? You're looking at, right, how is your food? How is your training? And actually also respect your sleep. I didn't care about sleep for so many years. It's probably only since I've had this thing in my last 3 years, maybe I've started to take care of it.
Yeah.
And I would take the time for it. I think everything's important. I think a lot of the things with training as well, yes, it is really simple, right? We can get in shape. You move some weight. If you're getting stronger and you're moving it with good form, you're going to see change. Yes, but in reality, that the gold is in the details with this stuff. And once you really understand doing a movement effectively, you can work really, really hard on it, but you're making sure that movement is as it should be instead of injuring yourself. So there'd be some of the things I'd look at and kind of not be so tough on yourself when you're looking to try and keep yourself in shape all the time. It's okay, just go and relax. Have time for your friends. Go and enjoy the good things in life. Don't always just think fitness is your only source of joy. There's a time for friends. There's a time for socializing. There's a time for actually focus on yourself as well and really seeing what you can do. I think it's amazing it's a shame. A lot of people will go through life and they'll never see their body the way that they could. So they've never have known how they could look and how they could feel. And they go through life on probably 50%.
Yeah.
Which is a huge shame because I felt it the same, where the confidence it gives you just with it physically how you look, but then the energy you have. Like there's times I can go to a pool day with my daughter and I'm running the whole time. We are just moving. That feeling is amazing. And the days where we go to a beach and maybe, you know, we've had a rough night out or something like this, right? And I'm not there with her. I feel so guilty and I don't have the energy and I'm tired and I can't be bothered and I'm sat on the, you know, the chair, like, yeah, in and out. But unfortunately, that's what most guys get stuck in.
Yeah.
And you see it all the time. I think actually having Olivia as a child was a big eye opener into what's important. And you go to these play areas and you'll see the dads and moms and they're just sat on the corner and they're just watching their kids play. And that is such a shame because some of these kids areas are really tight. Actually, they're really hard to get in and out of, but you want that experience. And I remember when my dad was here, and I remember just feeling how strong he was. And I thought that was amazing. My dad's strong. And I want to give that feeling to her. And I want to make sure other guys can also have that feeling.
Yeah.
Because once you've had that level of energy and confidence from your body, you'll just be questioning, how the hell did I get through all of this time on 50% energy, like struggling to be present for work and my kids. And now I feel like this. That's such a gift. And when I can see a client go through that journey and they get to that point, it's incredible. And they'll tell everyone else to go and do it as well. So yeah, that's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I can definitely relate to that because one of the triggers for me to get back in shape when I was around 31, 32 was my daughter being born and wanting to be a kind of dad that could kind of run around and deal with that. And actually, some of the things you've been saying there triggered for me in terms of the intuition you've built. So going back to what we were saying earlier, if you can get yourself to that 80, 90%, at least once in your life, you've then got that intuition, that ability to get back there or keep it and maintain it and then choose a little bit more. That feels like something that would be a better goal than actually going for the 100% right away, if that makes sense. Yeah.
The 100% doesn't exist. Like no one's 100% all of the time. Like give yourself a break. And it's so funny. All the time I get it from clients. Go, you must eat really well all the time. Yeah. No, no, I don't. Like, how can you function with that? You have sugar. Yeah, of course I have sugar. You drink. Yeah, of course I drink. And people think it's you have to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
In reality, you really don't. Like, if you can just get the basics mastered and you do it really well, you'll be head and shoulders of everybody else.
Just got to do it most of the time. Make sure.
Yeah, it's just making sure most of the time, and it's not complicated. It's really not.
Yeah.
It's very simple to get people in shape, but I think for a lot of people, if you are on the starting this journey, and you are wanting to get in shape, okay, maybe ask the question to why and try and go 3 levels deep. Like, what's the reason you really want to do this? Is it the right reason? Make sure it's clear. Is it for you? Is it for somebody else? What's the real reason? Is it actually for you? Once you've got that, you've got your why. Okay, now we need to start this journey. So what I mentioned, the 5 things. Okay, can I get these things in track? Can I start maybe looking after my food a little bit? Can I try and get my protein in? Am I actually doing any steps? Right? Can I actually get a bit more sleep? Can I try and clean my food up? Yeah, cool. That's literally 80% of the work.
Yeah.
And then it's just getting moving in the gym, and you really don't want to be wasting so much time. You've got 3 hours, get in, get out. You can really like you do it all the time, right? 45 minutes, you're in and out. You don't need as much time as you think.
Yeah, for sure. No, totally agree with that. Charles, it's been really fantastic chatting officially. Thanks a lot.
No, thanks very much. I appreciate it.